Good morning, evening, or night, wherever you are. Welcome to WHAM today. Take a deep breath, clear your mind, and let's drift through the whispers of today's world, one quiet thought at a time. As we wrap up Wednesday, 30th April 2025, let's see what stories are unfolding around us. Has halted all oil and gas production due to a strike impacting Europe's energy supply. China is navigating a complex landscape of international trade tensions, internal economic adjustments, and advancements in technology and space exploration. President Xi Jinping has emphasized the need for China to adapt and optimize its economic structure in response to external changes, particularly as trade protectionism rises globally. China views the U.S. market as largely closed and has called for boosting domestic consumption by increasing the birth rate, recognizing the broader social implications of couples' decisions about having children. In response to tariffs imposed by the Trump administration, which have reached as high as 145% on some Chinese products, China has retaliated with duties of 125% on US imports and accused the U.S. of trade protectionism at WTO session. The country is also using propaganda, including Korean War and AI-generated content, to counter the tariffs. China is actively seeking alternative markets through e-commerce platforms like Alibaba and establishing new trade routes, such as a railway to Europe, to mitigate the impact of tariffs. Amid these trade pressures, China and Brazil are strengthening economic cooperation in agriculture, infrastructure, and investment, positioning themselves as key partners in the global south. China's technological advancements are evident in the launch of the Blue Whale, the world's first high-speed typhoon-proof uncrewed submersible, and the deep space exploration laboratories, ZEL, daytime laser ranging test, contributing to future deep space missions. In the realm of artificial intelligence, smartphone giant Xiaomi unveiled its open-source Memo reasoning model. Furthermore, China's space program continues to rapidly advance, highlighted by the successful return of the Shenzhou 19 spacecraft and its 3 astronauts after a 6-month mission on the Tiangong space station, albeit with a forced landing site switch due to strong winds. China has lifted sanctions on EU lawmakers amid transatlantic tensions caused by Trump's policies, following meetings between the European Parliament President and China's ambassador to the EU. China is also reportedly ready to help ease India-Pakistan tensions, though its scope may be limited to avoid a full-blown confrontation on its doorstep. Domestically, a restaurant fire in Liaoning province resulted in 22 deaths and 3 injuries, prompting high-level safety reviews. A U.S. businessman, David Lee, was sentenced to 5 years in prison in China for a criminal case dating back over 20 years. Additionally, China has passed a private sector law aimed at injecting dynamism into the sector amidst the trade war with the United States, addressing concerns of businesses. Across the Pacific, the United States, under the Trump administration, has implemented tariffs on goods from China, with goods worth up to $800 now subject to tariffs and increased paperwork, and Chinese goods imported through postal services facing a tariff equivalent to 120% of their value, or a fee of $100 per pack. President Trump has defended these China tariffs as a measure to curb the greatest job theft in the world, asserting that China has been ripping us off like nobody's ever ripped us off. These tariffs are expected to lead to emptier shelves and higher prices for American shoppers. The U.S. Senate confirmed David Perdue as the next US ambassador to China. Meanwhile, in India, Prime Minister Modi will not attend the WHAM Victory Day celebrations in Moscow. Rajnath Singh will attend instead. Shifting focus to South America, Brazil and China are accelerating economic cooperation in agriculture, infrastructure, and investment, positioning themselves as key partners in shaping the future of Global South, especially as analysts suggest Washington's hardline approach is likely to boost Beijing's ties with Brazil and Latin America in general. Vietnam marked the 50th anniversary of the end of the Vietnam War, with significant celebrations in Ho Chi Minh City. A military parade showcased Vietnamese troops and Russian-made aircraft. Notably, Chinese and Cambodian troops participated for the first time. Floats representing Vietnam's emblem, Ho Chi Minh's portrait, and reunification symbols were central to the event. Communist Party leader WHAM declared the anniversary a victory of justice over tyranny. He emphasized the need for North-South reconciliation while respecting diverse viewpoints. State media highlighted Vietnam's strengths and aspirations for recognition. The anniversary also underscored the continuing search for approximately 200,000 missing Vietnamese soldiers, with families requesting U.S. assistance. In separate news, Vietnam is actively engaged in trade negotiations with Washington to avert a possible 46% tariff. The anniversary spurred reflection on the war's legacy, including photography's influence on global perceptions and its impact on the American public. Celebrations further emphasized the private sector's potential to fuel future economic growth. Japan faces economic headwinds due to U.S. tariffs, prompting nearly 40% of prefectural governments to offer financial support to affected businesses. Tokyo's tariffs envoy is engaging in a second round of negotiations in Washington, potentially offering concessions on vehicle import procedures to address the fact that Japanese automakers claim to be losing $1 million an hour due to the tariffs. Chief Trade Negotiator Akazawa is in Washington to address these concerns. Domestically, Japan has approved the restart of a nuclear reactor for the first time in 4 years. The Nuclear Regulation Authority confirmed that Hokkaido Electric Power's Tomari No. 3 reactor meets post-Fukushima safety regulations. Socially, Japan continues to grapple with issues like chikan, public groping on trains, predominantly targeting women. Japan also remains the only country requiring married couples to share a single surname, and while the CDP has proposed a bill to allow separate surnames, it faces significant hurdles. Tapple, a dating app with over 20 million users, launched a relationship verification system to combat dishonest relationship statuses. Technologically, Toyota is collaborating with Alphabet's Waymo on autonomous technology, aiming to accelerate development after struggling to keep pace with advancements in AI and autonomous driving. In international affairs, Japan is keen to collaborate with ASEAN for a free trade system. Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba recently attended wreath-laying rites at the monument of Philippine national hero Jose Rizal in Manila. Japan dismissed viral manga and feng shui-related earthquake rumors after the Chinese embassy in Tokyo warned its citizens to take precautions, leading to a decline in tourist bookings. Japan is also expressing sorrow as 4 pandas are preparing to return to China amid claims of political pressure, leaving only 2 pandas at the Ueno Zoo in Tokyo. A Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman expressed positivity about a new giant panda contract with Japan, welcoming Japan's continued interest in giant panda conservation. In the realm of criminal activity, police suspect Tetsuya Yamaguchi, arrested after being deported from Thailand, was involved in fraud totaling $3 billion, linked to a Japanese fraud group operating from Southeast Asia. A naked man's deadly rampage in Japan has led to public demands for answers from police regarding his motives and behavior upon arrest. UK fighter jets joined us airstrikes against Houthi rebels in Yemen, marking the first military action authorized by the Labour government. RAF Typhoons targeted buildings used by the Houthis to manufacture drones that had targeted shipping in the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden. Tony Blair's climate crisis views are absolutely aligned with government policy, according to PM Starmer. He stated he and Blair are aligned if you look at the detail of what he said. Richard Burrows, an 81-year-old former UK Scout leader, was sentenced to 46 years in jail for sexually abusing young boys. He was convicted of 97 historical offenses against 24 children between 1968 and 1995, after being on the run for nearly 3 decades. European allies see the war in Ukraine as critical for the continent's security. They are under increasing pressure to provide military support to Kyiv, particularly amid doubts about continued U.S. support if Donald Trump pulls out. A grainy video showing the final moments of the famous Sycamore Gap tree was presented to jurors in the trial of 2 men accused of cutting it down in the Yukon. The case has garnered significant public attention. A young couple in Kyiv experienced first love amidst the backdrop of the war in Ukraine. Their story highlights the personal impact of the conflict. Ukraine is poised to sign a landmark mineral deal with the United States within the next 24 hours, according to Ukrainian Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal. The agreement aims to strengthen cooperation in the mineral sector. German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius expressed skepticism regarding Russian President Vladimir Putin's proposed unilateral ceasefire in Ukraine. Meanwhile, Ukraine reported that a Russian drone strike resulted in the death of a young girl. Russia struck civilian areas in Ukraine with drones, resulting in casualties as Kyiv officials dismissed Russian President Vladimir Putin's offer of a unilateral truce. The attacks occurred during the night. European allies view the war in Ukraine as fundamental to the continent's security, pressing to find ways to support Kyiv militarily amid doubts about U.S. support should Donald Trump withdraw assistance. The UK military launched airstrikes with the U.S. targeting Yemen's Houthis, citing intelligence identifying buildings used by the Houthis to manufacture drones. Ukraine's President Zelensky called for a fair peace settlement with no rewards for Putin. Amidst reports the U.S. wants Kyiv to cede Crimea to Russia to end the war. India and Pakistan are experiencing early heatwave conditions, with temperatures climbing earlier than usual. Experts suggest this is becoming the new normal for the region. The transition from spring to summer-like heat has been rapid this year. India and Pakistan are facing a perilous situation with a high risk of escalation in Kashmir. Tensions remain high in the region. An Indian-origin family of 3 was found dead after a shooting at their home in Washington. The deceased, Harshavardhana Kikari, and his wife Shweta were the owners of India-based AI tech company HoloWorld. Pakistan's minister warned that India is planning military action in the next 24-36 hours, stating that Pakistan will face consequences. Pakistan maintains it has been a victim of terrorism and condemns it in all forms. The UN Secretary-General offered assistance in de-escalation and resumption of dialogue between India and Pakistan. He expressed deep concern about the ongoing situation between the 2 nations. Survivors of an attack in Kashmir reported that gunmen specifically asked if they were Hindus before opening fire. The attack resulted in the deaths of 26 people. Social media posts falsely claimed that India triggered a flood in Pakistan by withholding and then releasing large amounts of water from a dam. These claims have been debunked. A hotel fire in Kolkata, India, resulted in at least 14 deaths. Most victims died of suffocation, while at least 1 person died trying to escape the blaze by jumping from the roof. UN Secretary-General Guterres warned India and Pakistan against tragic consequences amid growing worries of a spiraling conflict over a deadly attack in Kashmir. Islamabad claimed it has credible intelligence that Delhi is planning an imminent military strike. There are growing fears of a backlash against India's Muslims following an attack in Kashmir. The government in Gujarat has demolished homes occupied by Muslims, and activists allege that right-wing Hindus are intensifying a campaign of demonization. Mark Carney's win sets the stage for improved India-Canada relations, following tensions related to Trudeau's allegations about Indian agents killing Khalistan leader Hardeep Singh Nijjar. A hotel fire in Kolkata India resulted in 15 deaths. Desperate guests scrambled from windows and ledges to escape the flames that engulfed the hotel. Pakistan saw 786 of its citizens exit India after visas were cancelled, amidst heightened tensions and warnings of a possible Indian military strike. The government stated it has credible intelligence that India plans to attack before Friday, following an attack that killed 26 men at a tourist site in Kashmir. Pakistan's information minister suggested a strike might occur within 24 to 36 hours. Soldiers from both sides have already exchanged gunfire along the border. In Balochistan, Pakistani security forces killed 10 terrorists, according to the ISBR, after a heavy exchange of fire. The deportation of thousands of Afghan refugees continues, splitting families, many of whom include undocumented migrants with Pakistani spouses who have lived in the country for years. Despite these challenges, solar power now constitutes over 14% of Pakistan's power supply, a significant increase from 4% in 2021, though concerns exist regarding its accessibility for the middle class. Meanwhile, in India, 1465, citizens returned home from Pakistan following the cancellation of visas crossing through the international border in Punjab. Reports indicate Prime Minister Narendra Modi has granted the military operational freedom to respond after the attack in Kashmir. The strained relationship with Pakistan has forced a Pakistani mother and her Indian son to live apart, their passports defining their identities. Syria is facing escalating sectarian tensions. Druze majority areas near Damascus are experiencing deadly clashes. Ashrafia Zanaya saw violence after an attack on a security checkpoint. The fighting spread around the capital. The UK-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights reported fatalities in Jaramana. The violence was triggered by a blasphemous audio recording on social media. Druze leaders condemned the violence. They also held the government responsible for the unrest in a Damascus suburb. Security forces have been sent to restore order. In northeast Syria, a Kurdish-led force will integrate into a new national army. Turkish forces attacked Kurdish communities, including one in Kobani. A couple and their 8 children were killed in the attack. Iran executed Mohsen Langaneshin, 36, at Gezel Hiza prison. He was convicted of assisting Israel's Mossad for 2 years. This included involvement in the May 2022 killing of Revolutionary Guards Colonel Sayyad Kodaya. The judiciary media outlet Mizan reported the guilty verdict on charges of spying for Israel. Langaneshin was also implicated in multiple cases linked to Kodai's death. Langaneshin's family and human rights groups maintained his innocence. They claimed any confessions were obtained through torture or blackmail. This execution highlights the ongoing tensions between Iran and Israel. In other news, an explosion occurred at a port facility. This facility is owned by a charitable foundation overseen by Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's office. The incident raised concerns about security and oversight. It follows a thwarted cyber attack and a major explosion at the Shahid Rajai port. Furthermore, Iranian journalists have reported increasing worries about a media crackdown. These concerns arose after an explosion at a munitions company in Isfahan. The explosion resulted in 1 death and 2 injuries. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu pledged victory in the Gaza war and the return of hostages during a national commemoration. UNRWA head Philippe Lazzarini stated that over 50 UNRWA staff have been detained and abused by Israeli authorities since October 2023. UNRWA accuses Israel of abusing its detained staff and using some as human shields. The International Criminal Court is investigating the potential war crime of starvation as a weapon in the Israel-Gaza conflict. Israel faces increased international scrutiny with over 40 nations questioning its ban on the UN's aid agency, as addressed in the ICG case. Amit Forlet, an Israeli private investigator, lost his UK extradition fight after being charged by the US Justice Department with conspiracy to commit computer hacking for allegedly targeting American climate activists. Sweden is currently facing increased concerns over escalating gang violence. A recent shooting at a hair salon in Uppsala, north of Stockholm, resulted in 3 deaths and several injuries. Police have arrested a 16-year-old suspect and prosecutors have begun a homicide investigation. Authorities are gathering information and interviewing witnesses to understand the motive. Reports suggest at least one victim was connected to organized gang crime. Following a closely watched election, Canada saw Mark Carney and the Liberal Party secure a win with 169 of 343 seats. This result leaves them short of a majority, necessitating collaboration with other parties to enact laws. While the Conservatives gained seats and votes, leader Pierre Poilievre lost his seat, casting doubt on his political future. Prime Minister Carney, previously a central banker, successfully persuaded voters he was best equipped to deal with Trump's trade policies and annexation concerns. Carney has promised to lessen Canada's dependence on trade with the US, stressing the need for Canada to operate as a free, sovereign, and ambitious nation. The victory could lead to a review of Canada's commercial relationship with Beijing, especially if US tensions continue. Cameron Ahmad is analyzing the potential effects of Carney's victory on Canada-US relations. Martina Steves-Gridneff suggests that Carney and the Liberals won a rare 4th term in power and explains the challenges they face. Australia is currently witnessing heated pre-election debates, with the coalition touting a $10 budget surplus and $40 billion less debt over the next 4 years under their economic plan, contrasting with Labour's proposals. Political candidate controversies include Senate candidate Harry Fong's authorization of contentious text messages, and One Nation candidate Stuart Bond's critiques of climate science and public health officials. The AUKUS agreement continues to be a central focus, particularly concerning Australia's acquisition of nuclear-powered submarines from the United States. Scientists in Australia have successfully sequenced the genome of the critically endangered southern corroboree frog, hoping to boost its recovery as the species faces functional extinction. An Australian woman is on trial, accused of using poisonous mushrooms to murder her estranged husband's relatives and attempting to murder another. Germany faces a growing issue with cocaine trafficking through its ports, particularly Hamburg. Cocaine seizures have increased by 750% between 20,000 and 23. This influx is fueling corruption, with a state attorney accused of taking bribes from a gang he was supposed to prosecute. Germany's Social Democratic Party, SPD, voted in favor of a 144-page coalition agreement with conservatives, clearing the way for Friedrich Merz to become the new chancellor. This vote marks the final hurdle for the new government's formation. 2 individuals, including a former aide to a far-right AfD politician, were arrested in Germany on suspicion of espionage. They are accused of passing sensitive information to Chinese intelligence agencies. 3 more individuals have been arrested on similar charges. Adidas warned that sneaker prices will increase in the US due to Trump's tariffs. The German sportswear giant's chief stated the unpredictability caused by the tariffs prevented them from issuing a full-year forecast, predicting price increases for American consumers. Friedrich Merz is set to form a new government in Germany after the SPD approved the coalition deal. Merz is scheduled to be sworn in as Germany's chancellor on Sunday following the approval. France accused Russian military intelligence, GRU, of conducting cyber attacks since 2021. The attacks targeted a dozen French entities, including those in the defense, financial, and economic sectors. France is banning activist groups on the edges of the political spectrum, as it aims to position itself as a defender of democracy against extremism before the 2027 presidential poll. The French government has accused a hacking group linked to Russian military intelligence of targeting the Paris Olympics and French government agencies and company. President Emmanuel Macron made an unannounced visit to a bar in Thouars, France, buying coffee for everyone. The move is seen as an effort to connect with the French people and address his image as being aloof. Following the killing of Abu Bakr Cissé in a mosque in La Grande Combe, France, critics say officials were slow to recognize it as a bias crime. The victim was stabbed multiple times while praying. French lawmakers are debating bills to combat drug trafficking amid fears of escalating drug-related violence. There is a rare consensus in France's lower house of parliament to address the issue. Sudan is at risk of unraveling, with war threatening to tear the country apart. The ongoing conflict poses a significant threat to the nation's stability. Sudanese citizens are returning to their homeland, hoping for stability after the military regained control of Khartoum and other areas from the Rapid Support Forces. However, the country remains wrecked by war. Pope Francis has challenged and embraced Africa's rising Catholic population. The Roman Catholic Church is growing faster in Africa than anywhere else in the world, with about a fifth of Africa's population, roughly 280 million people, identifying as Catholic. New Zealand has seen lawmakers from ethnic communities push back against critics who have been focusing on their ethnicity when disagreeing with proposed policies. Separately, a yellow-bellied sea snake was discovered on the South Island's west coast, the second such sighting in the country in a week, with the Department of Conservation attributing its arrival to recent severe weather. Looking ahead, New Zealand's Education Minister Erica Stanford announced that financial literacy will be integrated into the school curriculum for years 1-10, starting in 26. The curriculum will cover essential topics such as distinguishing between needs and wants, understanding taxes, and navigating insurance. Singapore's political landscape is witnessing a heightened focus on single-ward contests in the upcoming election. The battle between N. Chi Meng and Andre Lo is drawing particular attention owing to tighter electoral margins and the presence of high-profile candidates. Concurrently, mainstream election coverage is evolving, with podcasts increasingly serving as a platform for alternative and opposition voices. In a separate incident, a student was arrested for attacking a teacher with a penknife. The teacher received medical treatment, and the police have launched an investigation. The U.S., alongside the U.K., launched Operation Rough Rider, a joint military action against Houthi rebels in Yemen. This was the first such collaboration between the two countries since President Trump took office. The strikes focused on a Houthi military facility, producing drones used to attack ships. These actions occurred during sensitive talks between the Trump administration and Iran regarding its nuclear program. Venezuelan detainees at the Bluebonnet Immigrant Detention Center in Anson, Texas, spelled out SOAS with their bodies, fearing deportation to El Salvador under wartime law, despite denying gang ties. Under President Trump's deal, Venezuelan migrants were deported to El Salvador using a wartime law. 200 Venezuelan migrants were sent to a prison in El Salvador after a meeting with President Nayib Bukele in April. Under the Trump administration, a 2-year-old's mother was deported to Venezuela and the father to a Salvadoran prison, leaving their daughter in the United States. President Donald Trump dismissed several of former President Joe Biden's nominees to the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Council. Those dismissed included Doug Emhoff, the husband of former Vice President Kamala Harris. The United States defended Israel's actions in Gaza at an ICJ hearing, specifically addressing Israel's ban on the UN's Agency for Palestinian Refugees. A slowdown in commerce between the United States and China, caused by escalating tariffs, was evident in a report on manufacturing activity in April. This suggests a negative impact from the ongoing trade war. A power outage in Spain and Portugal created confusion and disruption. Even as electricity was restored, residents struggled to understand the extended blackout. Electricity has been restored in most of Spain and Portugal after a widespread outage that disrupted daily life. The cause of the outage remains unclear. The widespread blackout in Spain and Portugal is raising concerns about the resilience of their electric power grids. It also raises questions about the broader vulnerability of European power infrastructure in relying too heavily on renewable sources. The article discusses the anti-colonial struggle in the Horn of Africa, led by a dervish figure who fought for an independent Somalia. The figure is referred to as the Mad Mullah. Somalia has banned the entry of Taiwan citizens in an attempt to please China, a move welcomed by Beijing, which highly appreciates it. Somalia and Taiwan have imposed reciprocal entry bans for each other's citizens in a diplomatic dispute. The dispute appears linked to Taiwan's recognition of Somaliland, a breakaway region of Somalia. Fiji is facing scrutiny over domestic violence after 3 recent deaths, raised concerns about the treatment of women and a prevailing attitude that devalues them. Furthermore, an inquiry into the death of a Fijian boxer revealed the absence of an on-site ambulance as a contributing factor, sparking allegations of a cover-up involving the deceased's brother. To support Fijian athletes, a lottery fundraiser has been launched to enable their participation in the Pacific Mini Games in Palau. Thailand is experiencing rising temperatures, prompting health warnings and increased energy consumption. The European Court of Human Rights ordered Serbia to prevent the use of sonic weapons. This follows claims that a sonic weapon was used on peaceful demonstrators during an anti-government rally on March 15th. European anti-tourism groups are planning disruptions on June 15. Activists are calling for continued protests due to rising rents, crowds, and neighborhood degradation in cities like Barcelona. The Philippines' new digital nomad visa aims to boost tourism, but critics warn about potential loopholes for banned offshore gaming operators and call for strict enforcement. Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle of the Philippines, who has a history of advocating for the poor and marginalized, is being considered as a potential candidate for the next pope. Documents indicate that Harita, a major nickel mining company in Indonesia supplying the electric car industry, did not disclose water contamination to the public, despite concerns about regulatory oversight. A new investigation reveals how a pristine Indonesian island was sacrificed for global battery supply chains due to the nickel boom. President Donald Trump mentioned that I could get Kilma Abrigo Garcia back from El Salvador during an interview with ABC News. New details have emerged regarding Trump's deal to deport Venezuelans to El Salvador's most feared prison. El Salvador's president sought assurances that the migrants were members of the Tren de Aragua gang. 5 people were injured after an older man allegedly lost control of his car and crashed near a bridge crossing in Copenhagen, Denmark, according to police. Denmark's King Frederik X arrived in Greenland and is expected to meet with the new Greenlandic government and local residents. Thousands of South Africans, mainly white Afrikaners, seek asylum in the U.S., citing crime and discrimination. Kyle, a 43-year-old South African farmer, survived a farm robbery where attackers identified the land as theirs, later discovering a farmhand was killed on a nearby plot. Cambodia is now facing potential setbacks in its demining operations. This is due to the freeze in US foreign aid. The America First agenda is raising concerns about its impact. Demining programs are vital for the Southeast Asian nation. Rebel groups in Colombia are using social media platforms like Facebook and TikTok to recruit children and young adults. The United Nations is urging social media companies to increase their efforts in moderating content to prevent this. Tonga's health ministry has confirmed 2 dengue-related deaths. A dengue outbreak was declared in Tonga in February. Tonga's geological services reported moderate thermal activity on and around Tonga's home reef volcano. Roadside bombs killed at least 26 people in northeastern Nigeria, including women and children. The improvised explosive devices detonated on a road in several vehicles, and Islamic State has claimed responsibility. The International Committee of the Red Cross is assisting in the transfer of hundreds of Congolese soldiers and police officers from Goma, a rebel-controlled city in eastern Congo, to the capital, Kinshasa. Taiwan condemned Somalia for barring its passport holders from entering. Taiwan opened a mission in Somaliland in 2020, seeking to deepen ties as the two territories resist Chinese influence in Africa. The Trump family has agreed to projects in Qatar and Dubai ahead of President Trump's Middle East visit. President Trump's son is promoting the Trump Organization's business interests in the region. Lismore Castle lies at the heart of Ireland's Blackwater Valley, known for history, culture, and natural beauty. The valley is flanked by the Knockmeal Down Mountains and has fresh ocean breezes. Georgian filmmaker Dea Kulumbigashvili embedded in a birth clinic for a year to create the abortion drama Gapril, about an obstetrician facing abortion restrictions in rural Georgia. Mexico's Attorney General said there's no evidence of cremations at a ranch some groups called an extermination camp. The ranch was used by a cartel for training and recruiting. BRICS foreign ministers failed to issue a joint statement during a meeting in Brazil. Objections to expansion of the UN Security Council overshadowed consensus on trade measures. Guatemala is preparing to export avocados to the U.S. after receiving the green light for imports 6 months ago, although no shipments have been sent yet. Ma is set to make its Asian Games debut next year in Japan. Cricket was also formally approved for inclusion at the Games during a meeting in Nagoya. A mass grave was discovered in northern Greece containing bones believed to be from victims of the country's civil war in the late 1940s. And that's a wrap for today's news. Because even headlines need a nap. Stay curious, stay kind, and let the noise fade as you find your quiet. Take care, stay awesome, and I'll see you next time on WHAM Today.